All right, what's up, guys? Today we have Jonah, and we're going to talk about the top three mistakes that people make in the co-living business. And so before we dive into that, Jonah and we're buying a property together. It is east of Tampa. Jonah, what are some of the main things we plan to dive into today? I know it's like underwriting, maybe floor setups, bus stops, anything specific you think we should show anyone that watches this?
Yeah, I think it's good to go like super high level. If we're thinking about buying co-living, like let's start super high level. What are the characteristics that make it good? What type of area are you looking for? What does the demand look like in that area? And then you can get a little bit more specific and granular by property. So we'll just use this deal to walk through some of those components, and I think it will be pretty explanatory and helpful to anyone watching.
So let's see. I'm going to pull up. I actually have some slides prepped, and this isn't like a comprehensive list of what we would typically do, but it does show a lot. I pull that up, and I'm going to screen share. But speaking of the three biggest problems that we've seen co-living, building off what you said, the macro view, I would say that one of them is the location. Like I see a lot of people trying to force deals in like low population densities. What are some common things you also see on the macro view? Mistakes made.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely like number one is like location's everything. You want to be in the like you have to think about where's demand coming from, right? So like the if you understand where the typical resident's coming from, maybe they're like a service-based worker or, something in that kind of realm. They need to be in an area where there's businesses, where there's typically other people and there's industry going on. So that means being, in a metro or actually kind of outside a metro, like this particular area that we'll talk about outside of Tampa happens to be super popular because, even though it's not heart of Tampa, there's still tons of business and operation around, whether that's hospitals, whether that's, factories, other plants, other types of big businesses that employ a lot of people. The other kind of bigger on the macro, I mean, we can call it macro or micro, but, any sort of like HOA or zoning issues. So zoning has definitely been a big issue in Fort Worth. So a lot of the Fort Worth owners are dealing with zoning problems and actually parts of Tampa too, but not this particular area. So it's important to, we think that in the long term, zoning things will also, be sorted out, just like how early Airbnb zoning issues existed, and then a lot of them were overcome from the work of Airbnb and their team. But you need to make sure that if you're buying something, that it's going to be in an area that you can actually do the co-living model in it. And then on the micro, even if the zoning works, the particular neighborhood you're in, maybe that's, it has an whether they allow it or not allow it explicitly, you don't want to take that chance, right? You're buying a property, the exit strategy is co-living, and if the HOA changed their mind in a year or 2 years, you're going to be out of luck. So, just as, Dustin's buy box is pretty clear that no HOA, and you want to be in an area that obviously the zoning permits this type of property.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Jonah and I are buying this together with a couple other partners. And so this is east of Tampa, flood zone X. We're not dealing with the weird flood zones, insurance stuff. So that is easier. Like we're not right on the water. I drove to this a couple weeks ago and on more east, so between we have Orlando here, top right. Between here, it's like there's some decent work jobs, stuff like that. But the
You
second,
want to screen?
oh yeah, it didn't. It must have stopped. All right, let me pull it up.
Yeah, just so that you can see what you're looking for.
So
Yeah, there you go.
east, here's our address. And then, yeah, east of Tampa. And then west, we have Orlando, a little bit farther away. And what I was talking about, we are flood zone X, so it's not right on the water. So that definitely helps. But between here, so this little red dot and Tampa, it's all jobs. Every type of
Hmm.
job you can imagine. A lot of retail, Walmart's, Costco's, Publix, like you name it. So it's a really good spot. And so right off the bat, we're going to start macro and narrow down. No HOA, like Jonah said. Great location. And then I'm going to pull it up on Zillow real quick.
And
But it
it's
has a lot of
funny.
space. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that that whole corridor is actually super popular from a lot of perspectives. I know there's some big people that scale midterm rental portfolios. They're always looking for Valrico, Brandon. those areas. And then also, if you look at the PadSplit site, which we'll probably go to in a second, Plant City, which is even further east, happens to be super popular. I think they have, a couple dozen units on there at 100% occupancy. So sometimes you find these surprising pockets where, there's just not a lot of apartment supply or it's too expensive and there's still a lot of workers. So yeah, that's kind of what we found here.
Yeah, yeah. So the neighborhood, I was there basically this time last month. In the neighborhood, it's older, no HOA again, and then you could tell that probably half of it was, maybe not half, like 60% owned, 40% rentals. Plenty of parking, and so a corner lot as well.
How do you
We,
tell the neighborhood is 60% owned, 40% rentals?
it is hard to quantify. That's a good question. You kind of, after just going through so many, you kind of start getting a vibe. Like it's not it's like the amount of cars that are parked. Um, some are some are older homes. They live in it still, like they own it, but it's like they got a junk car maybe in the front. Like it's definitely not the HOA type vibe neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also look at like on Zillow, you could look in the neighborhood and see how many rentals they're trying to get at least. You could start pulling different rental comps as well for more like quantitative info. Right here's the slides. So we like the area. Now we're gonna start looking at some metrics. So like this is what Joan and I looked at before we were like, all right, let's officially go into escrow. But this is from PadSplit, padsplit.com. Recount and you can look at actual revenue data, kind of like AirDNA, strong occupancy, and then we do talk with our rep, our PadSplit rep. She or he, they have access to a lot more data than just this, but this is their zip code. So I know, Jonah, you found this deal. What would you say stuck out to you, where you're like, to the point where you're like, Dustin, what if we buy this? What do you think? Like, other than what we already spoke about, maybe the interior or
Yeah,
square foot?
I think a couple of things. I mean, first of all, it's effectively turnkey. You're just basically doing some of the modifications to turn it into a multi-room place, but there's very little rehab, clearly. I think this was just a flip done. I mean, look, if you look at the pictures, I mean, it's a pretty well done flip, actually. And I think it just got stuck on market. He couldn't really sell it. The market's gotten a little slow in the last couple of months. I'd say like the room, the way that the layout actually works permits, I think we're projecting 10 rooms, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
Not every house, even at that certain square footage, actually converts super well. Like that room, can convert to one or two rooms. And sometimes the bedrooms are just too big and you get square footage there, but you can't really split them. So this specific layout is actually really great for, kind of pursuing the co-living model. But we also really like that zip code. I mean, it's effectively 100% occupancy. You're getting, above 200 a week rates on the shared rooms, which is, really good for other PadSplit areas. And just generally, the kind of adjusted room count to the price ratio was very good, very favorable. You're not usually finding places that can convert to 10 beds, at the $400,000 price range in Tampa. I mean, Tampa is pretty expensive. So,
Yeah,
yeah, all those
yeah,
factors have made it a standout choice.
yeah. So here is this is also cool because it was like a split level home. It's like it has a bottom, and then you go up only like 8 stairs, and then you're in the living room area, and then another 8 stairs, you're in the top floor. Here's the original layout. Let me zoom in a little more. But yeah, plenty of room. Jonah saw it, and then as soon as I saw it too, I was like, okay, this has potential. So massive living room. We are using PadSplit. They really don't recommend the living room often, only because the tenants or especially actually members, the living room causes more problems than benefits.
So Do you have your modified? Do you have the floor plans like with the adjusted rooms? Because that might be helpful to show side by side. It's the next one. I'm ahead of myself. There you go.
Right here. So there's a couple of different ways we could have done it. The the contractor handyman, they had some opinions, but ultimately this is what we're looking at the moment. So living room here, turning it into one room. The garage, it's only a single car garage, but we are turning it into two rooms. Not quite leaving this little hallway. We're just gonna have two doors. This is this is interesting. So it depends who you ask, but if we're doing windows, we'll we'll pull the permits because it's like if you get in a fight with the city, it's you just at least like windows and bathrooms permits for sure. So at the moment, it's the one bedroom living room. Number three here at the bottom left is another bedroom. This won't be a hallway anymore. And then room four, this is a tweak we're still conversing with the handyman on. The laundry room and room four will be combined, and we'll get like a stand-up washer dryer in the kitchen. And then Audrey, she'll probably make the official decision on that, but room number two is in the dining room. And we'll probably have like a little table here, like a little breakfast table next to room four. Big kitchen. And then right here, rooms, let's see, seven. Yeah, this is, I want to make sure. So this on the bottom is the bottom floor. So you have the main floor, bottom floor, and then all the way to the right, top floor. But yeah. The more unique thing, these room five, six, seven are kind of self-explanatory. Six and seven, we're just cutting a big room in half. But room 10 is really unique. We've done this at a few properties. We have the master bath right here. It's actually in our benefit to get rid of the essentially just master bedroom and master bath, and we put a hallway inside the master bath. And now this, or sorry, in the inside the master bed. And so now the master bath is a shared bathroom. It sounds really weird, but when people see it in person, oh, okay, this makes
So
sense.
how does so does it go? So in this particular one, it's a 5-3 right now, right? So it's going to end up being a 10-3. So are you
Hmm.
using the? So there it looks like there's two bathrooms upstairs. So is it some of the downstairs people share the upstairs one, or how are you guys organizing the
Yeah.
bathroom?
So technically, the bottom they'll have to go up about 8 steps to come to this. Fortunately, there's not any full flights of stairs, so it's not too much of like an
It's
issue.
a small staircase, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We are gonna turn this on the first floor on the left here. It was just a bathroom, like no shower or anything. So we're gonna get rid of this pantry in the kitchen and then put a just a stand-up shower there.
Hmm. So it ends up being the four bedrooms downstairs share that bathroom, and then 5, 6, and 7 go upstairs for one, and then 8, 9, 10 have the other one. That's
Hmm.
what it looks like, right?
And then so technically these will be like all shared. Anyone can use any of them. Some will of course have like a preference. And then we are expecting like the rooms that are closer to the bathrooms to probably go for like a premium. Nothing crazy, but naturally they'll probably be bid at a higher rate. That's where Audrey will come in, just leveraging what she thinks is best.
Yeah, and just for sort of clarity, Audrey is working with Dustin's team, but is as a representative for PadSplit, and that's always a benefit of working with a team that is kind of on the ground and doing a lot of activities. That the PadSplit reps are willing to work super closely with you because you're serious and you're bringing deals to the table. So we're always able to collaborate with them to get really that like firsthand opinion and that second level of data, which are super important. But
Yeah.
the thing I was going to ask you was, so when you do your projections on the like go back to the slide two on that market. So it says, 209 per shared bathroom and 261 for private bathroom. Obviously, we would probably want to just underwrite and be conservative and say those are our prices, but what's the probability of being able to get rents above those rates, especially with like a nice house like this, or as you said, maybe the room is a little bit bigger and closer to the bathroom. Like, how do you
Yeah.
evaluate those things when you think about
Yeah.
rooms and rates?
So I'm gonna so 209 is what we showed there for the shared bathroom per week. And that's the average. So I'm gonna zoom in on these numbers for us. And we were talking to Audrey last night actually about that same exact topic. And it's really kind of like anything. It's how proactive you are. So some people, like if you fill the spot, like you create a little flyer, it has a QR code, and you fill based on your own marketing your room, you actually save on the fees. Like here, we allocate like 12 to 13%. So no matter what, PadSplit's going to get 8% of the fee. And then typically, if based on their own PPC marketing, stuff like that, they find a tenant, they take the first 10 days. So if we're proactive, though, I think not only can we fill it faster, but we can get a higher rate. Top three things that'll help are the big mistake people do is they won't even furnish the bed and when they take pictures. The second mistake people will do, like they won't put any effort in the room. It'll just be a mattress. The
Yeah,
second mistake, they're using iPhone pictures.
it's not. I mean, think about looking at a Zillow listing. Like if you
Hmm.
see an empty house or one with just phone pictures or blurry or just the lighting's great, I mean, it's just very hard to. It looks unprofessional at this point.
Yeah.
So
And then the third mistake is no one's really putting any effort in the room overall, not just the pictures or the linens, anything like that, but it's like if you just have the desk and a chair, like little things, maybe a mini fridge and a little piece of art, everything we're seeing, hearing, it goes a long way. And both filling the unit, the average weekly rate, you're going to jump above the average, like noticeably. It could be 10, 15%. But then also the average stay of the tenant. So then it's less churn, it's less of that 10-day fee that's being eaten up. And so
what's the
there's a,
average stay in a house?
everything we're seeing, it is dependent on states, like if you want to get real granular, but 8 months seems to be like the universal.
I mean, that's super solid, right? I mean, so if you're comparing the investment to, a short-term rental Airbnb type property where guests are turning over every couple of days, and then you might have vacancy for a couple of weeks or even entire months if it's a super seasonal market. I mean, this is pretty favorable and just fewer headaches, right? Just fewer concerns because, someone stays 8 months. I mean, that's almost effectively a long-term tenant at that point.
Yeah. I guess then, let's see, we have a couple minutes left. Jonah, I know you see a ton of deals on market, off market, creative, cash. How often do you see ones that show, and this is a projection, like anything could happen, but show even over 2,000 in net profit per month?
Yeah, I mean, this one's definitely particularly good. I'd say we're seeing ones in like the low twos. It also just depends on what dynamic structure you do, like how much loan balance you're going to do, how much mortgage you have to pay month to month, the price point, and sometimes you have a cheaper house that maybe only converts to 6 rooms, but has pretty good ROI and cash on cash return metrics, but not at that same level of net profit. So I think we're seeing like things across the board, a good mix of deals. This one is a good one, just turning from a big house into an even bigger one.
And then if people want to work with you or find deals from you, I know you guys sell wholesale deals. You also offer other services. What is the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so we offer our main business related to co-living is the co-living concierge. So you can head to co-living concierge.com. There you can book a call with our team and learn a little bit about how you can kind of get into deals like this that we found for Dustin and now we're working on with him. You can also find me personally on Instagram, Jonah.Platovsky. Shoot me a message there and we can get connected and discuss more about co-living. And I'm always posting content on my Instagram and YouTube at the same handle, talking about co-living trends, tips, anything else that can be helpful to you. So, our goal right now, and, along with Dustin, is to really figure out how to get more both investors and residents into co-living properties. And we have the opportunity, right? It's a blue ocean now. It's kind of what we think is the next Airbnb trend. It's really picking up steam right now, both from the PadSplit level and from the macro level. And, we're excited what the next couple of years hold for us.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for joining.